I'm going to talk about three things tonight. Municipal elections. I'm a former councillor in Russell Township. And I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago there was a big argument on a bilingual sign bylaw. I'm the one who challenged it by putting up a French-only sign, so I'm going to talk a bit about that, because it has repercussions on property rights. And then the last but not least is I will talk about my book. I ran my first time in municipal election in '94, and I ran after that up until the last municipal election. I got elected in '03, and the first task that I did within the 30 days that I was elected is we fired our CAO. The reason for it is simple. The mayor, who is also a newly mayor, asked me to fire him, and I said I'd like to work with him. And we're still in the training. By the way, those who get elected, you will be going through a training session. Guess who trains you? The staff. They will teach you very well on how to follow the rules and regulations that are set out by the province on how to be a good councillor and not disturb the administration too much. Literally. I approached the CAO, and prior to being elected, I was attending every council meeting. I had a better record of attendance than the councillors themselves. And every time I always had a question to ask. Because at the end, I don't know how other councils in other municipalities work, but at the end of every council meeting, we had a question and answer session. And I went to see the CAO after the mayor asked me to fire him, and I said, no, I'd like to give him a chance and work with him. And when I walked into his office, I said, we're missing certain things on our training. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, you're right. And he said, Jean Serge, the mayor and I don't get along. I said, oh, I know that. And he said, you know, when you were coming to council, and you'd always ask some questions, and we'd always deflect you by saying, oh, we got the answer to the material somewhere else, or we'd have to write to Toronto. He says, I had the answers to every single question you asked. And he says, but you see, when an embarrassing question is asked to council, it's my job to protect them. So right away I realized he was telling me how he was going to screw me over. Because the wheels started turning. I figured, you're going to set me up with an embarrassing moment, or something's going to happen, and you're going to leak it to the public, and the public's going to come back and ask me that embarrassing question that I will know nothing about, or how did it happen? And the CEO is going to come forward and save my butt. So I said, oh, well, thank you very much for, the nice advice and everything. And I walked out of his office, and his office was, closed the door, the mayor's door was there, walked into the mayor's office, and I said, okay, now I'm ready to fire him. Because he just told me how he's going to do it to me. So be careful, those who get elected. If you don't know the ropes, you might know you know the ropes. I thought I knew the ropes. Like I said, we had a very tumultuous council when I was a councillor. The people that saw that I was gaining ground when I got elected, rumors went out that I was going to, if I got elected, I was only going in there to cause trouble, to cause arguments. So I said, well, there's only way to settle that. So the first public debate, there's about 300 people in the hall in Embrun. And I said just that. I said, there's a rumor going around if I get elected, I'm going to cause a lot of arguments on council. Well, I said, they're correct. Because I'm not going in there to agree with everything's being said. If there's something happens or something is being put on the table that I don't agree with, it's my job. I've been elected to argue it for the people. I got elected. And that's what I did. We had such a tumultuous council that for the first year, we were the main attraction in the village. We packed the hall every time we had a council meeting. But we brought the municipality out of debt. We put $1 million in the bank when they had nothing in the bank for the past 15 years. So that's how efficient we were. But there's one thing that is wrong with the municipal election, for Ottawa anyway, is your ward system. It needs to change. you are held hostage with the ward system. You've got to open it up and put more members at large, get people elected at large. If you still want to have the wards, that's not a problem. First councillor, the one that councillor comes in as with the most vote, goes to ward number 1. Second, ward number 2. But have him elected at large, because that way, the best will rise to the top. And imagine if every good candidate in Osgood, that's running in Osgood, was to get elected to council. You'd have a good rural committee. So that's my suggestion for a municipal election. Now, the sign bylaw. In, I don't know if anybody remembers the name Ken Hill, Mayor of Russell. He passed the sign bylaw, and it literally says that all new commercial signs must be in both English and French. If you want to turn it on. Howard and I, to make a long story short, Howard Galganov and I challenged the law in court, and we ended up in the Court of Appeal of Ontario. And if you go down to number 27, okay, this is something that the courts are really looking hard to get away from the Municipal Act and create something that's not there. Under, what they start saying is, in particular, the Supreme Court of Canada decision, a lot of gobbledygook, is authority for the proposition that where no specific power is granted, a general provision in the Act may be the source of power for the enactment of a specific bylaw. While acknowledging that municipalities are statutory bodies that may only exercise the powers expressly provided or implied conferred on them by statute, meaning the Municipal Act, bring it down now. That included in this authority are general welfare powers conferred by provisions in provincial enabling legislations on which municipalities can draw. So, although when I went to court on the first fine, which I won, and Gowling both referred to the fact that the general powers, the general welfare powers that are given to municipalities do not apply when it's specific in the Municipal Act. But the Court of Appeal of Ontario disagreed. They're saying that under general welfare, like for banning pesticides, that is where municipalities can draw their power to pass just about any bylaw they feel is for the general welfare of the public. If you want to go down to page 32. Now, understand, I'm a francophone. And when I put up my sign for the past 30-odd years before the sign bylaw, I only said independent radiator services. That's all that was on the sign, just a name. I need to put out a new one, but I put a new one in with which now has the services: radiateur réparé, manufacture et reconditionné, acclimatisé, rempli et réparé, petite soudure, petite réparation de tout genre. Those were the 3 lines that I had in French only. The bylaw says that those 3 lines have to be in English and French. By putting it in French only, I was infringing on the Act. One thing that was kind of hard to accept when I read this is at no time did I provide an invoice to the courts or a business card to the courts. But this is what the courts said on their own. Bring it down a bit more. Oops. Oh, that's not page 32. I need page 32. Sorry. Okay. The business name is Independent Radio Services, is unilingually English and is entitled to remain so. For most of the 34 years Brisson has been in business, the content of his sign has been in English only. Well, yes, it was just a name. But they're trying to say that it was English only, and if I want to call myself Jonathan or Jonathan, or my parents want to call me a different name, Jean Serge or Jean Serge, it's not up to a court to decide that. But they are now deciding that because the name was Independent Radiator, well, that was English only. Thus, in the past, Brisson has chosen to, and he continues to hand out business cards and invoices in English only. Well, my invoices have been bilingual since at least '91. Where did they get that? Where did the Court of Appeal of Ontario get the fact that my invoices are in English only? And later on, I will show you where it is both languages. But this is where, when I started seeing this, I'm going, they are really, really grasping at straws to validate not ruling in our favor. Go to number 85 on the side, yeah. So they basically said that Section 2B of the Charter guaranteed my right to have my sign in one language. So then they went looking for a notwithstanding clause. The thing that we found out is there are two notwithstanding clauses in the Charter. Section 33, which is what the Quebec government used to bring in or to enforce Bill 101, which has a sunset clause. The other one is Section 1 of the Charter, which is a notwithstanding clause that can be used by the courts, and it remains forever until it can be overturned by legislation or something else in a higher court. But what they did was, I would hold that the benefit of the bylaw are proportional to any deleterious effect on freedom of expression or inconvenience. For these reasons, although the bylaw is a breach of Brisson's rights under Section 2B of the Charter, it is a breach that is demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society under Section 1 of the Charter. So they took away the right of a francophone to express himself in French only in order to protect the French language. Figure that one out. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this tonight is because there's a lot of discussion on property rights and whether or not they should be included in the Charter. Well, there's proof positive. Property rights are not in the Charter. But if they are included in the Charter, let's say they're under 2C or D, they will be affected by the notwithstanding clause. And that's why they cannot include property rights in the Charter. So now I'm going to go to my book.